Welcome, everyone, to Rock M Radio. This is a brand new episode of Dive Cuts. We're back after basically a couple weeks off. So thanks, everybody, for sticking with us as we navigated the holidays, and little Mizzou basketball was kind of light during that time. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but this past week, finally an opponent worth talking about, not just Kansas, but also the Cal game. So we're going to get into that. I'm your host, Sam Silling. If you're unfamiliar, I'm the guy waving and talking if you're watching us on YouTube. If not, you're probably already subscribed to the podcast and are familiar with the voice at this point. To my right, Mr. Matthew J. Harris. Matt, how are you?
I'm feeling better after the results yesterday. Border war always stirs equal parts excitement and anxiety. And yesterday was again a case of that, but definitely way more excitement at the end of 2 hours and 15 minutes. So it's made for a good start to the week to get the first home win over a number one team since 1997 when I was a sixth grader at Lang Middle School. So definitely a good way to start the week. It's only been nearly 3 decades.
Yeah. So let's just dive into this, because I'm sure that's what the majority of people, actually want to talk about. As much fun as like the Cal comeback was, so much of this preseason was kind of. Well, I mean, the comeback was fun. Like that little 8-minute segment where they were scoring a bunch of points and Cal wasn't, that was fun. But we've spent, several months now kind of talking about the questionable makeup of this non-conference schedule and sort of what, the non-conference schedule was sort of doing for Mizzou's NCAA tournament hopes. It was putting a lot of focus on the Memphis game, the Kansas game, the Illinois game, for them to be able to pick up quad one opportunities. And not so much just that those are, quad one opportunities, but that there weren't any quad two opportunities, which are also good for your resume. California was barely a quad three and they'll be fortunate if that stays quad three. Everything else was quad four. And so it just didn't leave them a lot of wiggle room. So it's great that from a resume standpoint, they go out and beat Kansas. It's also great because I really, really don't like Bill Self. I'm incredibly respectful of the job that he's done. He's a fantastic basketball coach. Blah blah blah. I hate the sumbitch. Few things bring me joy like Bill Self losing basketball games. And so what's funny is I kind of touched on this in I can't remember if it was pour over or study hall. But growing up, I didn't have that hate for Kansas that a lot of Missouri fans kind of innately have, right? So I mean you're kind of familiar with I didn't go to Missouri. I didn't grow up in the Columbia area. I became a Mizzou fan because they were the nearest team. But when you're a kid, you tend to cheer for the teams that are fun and that win a lot. And that wasn't always Missouri, although they were very good in the late 90s. And so I always kind of like Roy Williams. And, truth be told, I always kind of like Illinois. But man, once Bill Self took over and he's smug and he cheats. Now it's all everybody's cheating, by the old standards, but
it's sanctioned.
It's sanctioned cheating. But the knowing all the things that were going on behind the scenes, it just really drove me to hate him. So I beating him, which Missouri has not had not done. They've had the opportunity to do. They've not done it frequently. Is always a big pleasure for me. So yeah, I was tightly wound all day on Sunday, And even when they got up 24, like I could not unwind because like I've seen this happen before.
Yeah, we saw it in 2012.
Including at Fog Allen. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just relief in a certain sense. I think Border War always has, just the broader historical context, the institutional context. It's, there's all those other things that go into it. And then you look at where Missouri was as a program coming into this, I think going into last week, I think going into the Cal game, they had not beaten a high major team in I think almost like 350 days. I think there was a lot of tension around, okay, can this be a week, where we affirm some things about this team and, the kind of things we've seen against really soft competition. I don't think the Cal game helped that at all and how that game flow happened. And so I think just the biggest thing for me about Sunday was they came out, they executed crisply. They had a clear, coherent sense of what they wanted to do. This team, they changed the starting lineup. Part of me thinks that was a wrap thing that was kept under wraps and that was unveiled. And that lineup played 18 minutes. But they came in, they had a clear identity. They had a clear sense of what they wanted to do. And I think, that first half, made people just breathe a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think the second half, as always, brought the anxiety back. But I think watching this team play legitimately good basketball for 20 to 25 minutes, really just let out a lot of steam that I think had built up. And, you look at the 0-19 record, 0-20 against high majors in the last year to get 2 wins in the way they did last week. I think it finally just flushes some things down. So set aside all the other sort of feelings and context around the KU game. Beating the number 1 team in the country is the kind of reset you want after what I think has been a really rough, 51 weeks. So I think that was just the biggest thing to me is, it doesn't guarantee them that they're going to make the tournament this year. I don't know if it's going to, what it, foretells about what they're going to do in SEC play. I just know that the last 7 days did a lot of really cathartic things for fans, for players, for coaches. And I think that's just a good way to go. So I think that was just sort of my broad way that I sort of thought about it coming out of the game and seeing the result.
And, one thing that I do also kind of want to point out and another sort of like big takeaway for me is I think what it showed was also that like Dennis Gates doesn't have this where he wants it yet. And the reason he doesn't have it where he wants it yet is because like 4 guys played, really like all 5 guys played 30 minutes. And 4 guys played 33 or more. I think is what it was. Basically like the starting 5, those guys that, we talked about, Ant Robinson, Tamar Bates, Tony Perkins got inserted into the starting lineup. Not the first time he played. He was the starter against Memphis, and then they kind of backed him off a little bit.
I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, Josh Gray, and then Mark Mitchell. So basically, 4 of the 5 stars that we're used to, and then we inserted Tony Perkins. But those guys, they got subbed out, but they were who Dennis rode with. And I think we know that Dennis wants to play a deep bench, and he still played 11 guys, but Tio Berra played 2 minutes. There wasn't a whole lot of I think only 2 guys actually played anything significant, outside of the starting 5. So it was a very short bench. I think essentially it was Gates saying, a lot of what you were just kind of talking about how the fan base almost kind of needed something like this. Basically going into that game saying, we need to win this game. And it really feels like they threw their best shot, at Kansas. And I've said in the forums and talked to you guys, like, I don't necessarily feel like Missouri played their best game, but I thought they played their hardest 40 minutes that they played this year. And they played about as clean as you could want outside of, maybe, the 8 or 10 minutes where Kansas kind of got their bearings and made a run at it. But even then, I think there were several opportunities during that run where Missouri just missed really good opportunities to sort of provide that separation.
Yeah. I think the first half. Yeah. I mean, the cut down usually for Dennis with the rotation starts happening now. And this is when you're going to, I think, start seeing, at least against quality teams like Kansas and Illinois, the bench is going to get tighter. We can talk kind of more about how the rotation's been managed later. I think the first half, Kansas I was stunned at the level of just sloppiness from Kansas in the first half too. There was and I do agree with Bill said, people I think said afterwards, it almost seemed like Bill was sliding Mizzou to talk about how his team didn't perform, whatever. You watch enough Bill Self teams, you kind of have a good baseline for what is an engaged, locked in, crisp team. And Kansas was not that. I think there is some truth to that. And, in the middle of that first half, when Dennis began kind of rolling some bodies through to give his starters a break, Kansas was still sloppy. I think a lot of Kansas turnovers in that stretch were dead ball, just poor passing, poor cutting, unaware of where they were. Like 3 guys stepped on the sideline or stepped on the end line. When have you ever seen a Kansas team and guys on a Bill Self team not know where they are on a basketball court? And so, Missouri didn't necessarily execute crisply offensively in that stretch, but Kansas just didn't seem itself at all. Second half, you can tell that they cleaned up some of the mistakes that were being made. They started executing a little bit. They started getting on the glass, and they started to apply game pressure. And a lot of people are going to talk about, the lead slipped and what happened there. I think I looked at it all the starters were tracking at 24 minutes. When Dennis subbed them at 12, he had to give them a break at some point. So you got to go to the bench. And Kansas just responded against Missouri's bench. They got some momentum. I think Missouri felt tight, when they got back, around the 8-minute mark. Things tightened in a little bit. And I think that's where, like you were saying, we haven't seen the best of this team yet. That stretch when they got back their starters on the floor, around the 8-minute mark, offense wasn't as crisp. They were settling for jumpers. There were some, rushed sets that were happening. They weren't as crisp defensively. I think if you're going to look back and say, okay, that's where they buckled. But I think ultimately at the end, they closed it down. And you can talk about it wasn't clean. There are things they can obviously fix. They took a punch from Kansas. They responded and, in the final 4 minutes, did what they needed to do to secure results. So I think that's the heartening thing is you watch a team, take that kind of shot, not execute its best and still come out with a win. Those 2 games last week, I think, were a direct repudiation of what we saw last year when this team just could not, for the life of itself, muster any response in the last 10 minutes of basketball games. Just became Groundhog Day. They just folded repeatedly. And I think in the last week, what you saw was a team that took 2 really big shots, the 17-0 run from Cal to come out and get that, game back to a positive result. I think Kansas, in that middle stretch there, it's basically like a 20-5 stretch there for Kansas to withstand that and still get a result. So I think that's the thing you want to see and you want to come away with this is, again, understanding that Missouri's got a lot of cleanup work to do. They've, still got some ceiling I think they can reach, but man, to have that team take those kind of punches in a week, get 2 positive results, I think that has to leave people feeling positive. Again, we have to see them build on that, going over the rest of the month, but that's not something you saw last year outside of the Minnesota game. And that's when they were fully healthy. We saw it once, this year, and without Caleb Grill on the floor, this last week as well. Just polar opposite of what we saw a year ago. So I thought that was heartening. I thought not clean, but good teams find a way to win. They find a way to get results, and that's what this one did last week.
Yeah, and I think like that's an important point for me is like, still getting the results that you want when you're not playing your best. And I do think that like Caleb Grill being out and hopefully he can kind of come back fully healthy here, whenever he's ready, and still be that level of player that he was right before the injury. May take him a little time to get sped up, but if Missouri has that, now you're talking about Tony Perkins is still has not played his best game. But it does look like you've got, Ant, Tamar, and Mark, who are all being able to sort of shoulder the load. If you can get Tony playing the way he's capable of, and you get Grill back, well, now you're talking about, really like those substitutions and those patterns, like needing to kind of get guys, some rest. Well, I mean, how much more impact can like a guy like Caleb make if you're able to like sub out Tamar and Mark, and then the other team's kind of making a run and he can answer with a three. And I think like that's one of the things that like, if you're looking for kind of who is missing in the Kansas game, and especially during that comeback, is basically like somebody like that who could just kind of step up and knock down the shot they need to sort of, slow the momentum. Kansas was clearly operating better offensively. They weren't turning the ball over as much, but just having somebody that was going to be able to step and make a shot, I think makes that obviously the result still turns out well, but maybe you're not sweating as much and not as nervous.
Yeah, the one thing when I looked through the kind of lineup data today, it's very clear what the top five are. It's Mark, Tamar, Ant, then Grill and Tony, but they're sort of lagging because each of them has missed 2 games because of injury. But it's a very clear, bright line as to who the top 5 on this roster are at this point. And I think that in itself is a big step over where this team was a year ago. What were we doing this time last year? Like, Sean's playing pretty well, but who's going to come with him?
Yeah.
You got 5 guys that you can look at and go, okay, these are the guys that we can know what we can get from each of them. And you can clearly outline what each guy can give you. That's a massive step forward. The 3 guys that really saw time yesterday coming off the bench were Aiden Shaw, Marquez Warwick, and, I'm missing one name now, but, I could probably pull it up, but I'm missing one name off the top of my head here. But Quez and, Aiden are guys that have, played, pretty solid, supporting roles at this point, and then you even kind of get into the deeper bench role. Marcus Allen's, seeing pretty good time.
Well, even Allen only played 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Against Kansas.
But I'll pull it up here just because it's probably easier for me to look at if I do it this way. I just think that they've got 3 guys that are clearly, following up as a supporting cast. And then you've got 3 deep bench guys right now. That's been Marcus, that's been Trent, and that's to a certain extent, it's been, Jacob Cruz as they've been trying to get him jump started. But there's a pretty clear top 5. There's 3 guys that are giving them some depth. And yeah, here they are. Josh Gray. I'm omitting Josh. But yeah, it's been Bates, Mitchell, Robinson as your clear top 3. Perkins and Grill kind of in that second tier. And then it's Gray, Warwick, Shaw. I mean, that's 8 guys right there. And if, Gates says he wants to play 10 deep, he's really sorting out, who among Pierce, Allen, and Cruz is going to, take 2 of those last 3 spots. Cruz didn't play. We saw Pierce and Allen. The question will be, how do those minutes get distributed? But you can look up and down the rotation now and see a pretty clear hierarchy. Once you stop looking at all the lineups and all the sort of tinkering he does, you really look at everything in aggregate. That's a big deal, to go into a game knowing, okay, we've got 5 guys we can trust. We've got 3 reliable reserves. And then we can look deep into the bench and see, okay, what can Trent give us today? What can Marcus give us today? can honor or, Jacob, find a little foothold. I think that's sort of the big thing to come out of this with is, yes, five guys played a lot, but I think they've got some flexibility moving on, into the rest of non-con and into SEC play here. That's a huge takeaway, for me from yesterday is when they lock in and they focus on a rotation, they've got a pretty clear pedigree of what they can do. And I think that's a remarkable step forward for this group.
Well, yeah. And I do think that, and I even kind of wrote this in study hall today talking about, the minutes distribution against KU. Like, to me, it was more about the opponent. It was more about the opportunity that I think Gates really knew how badly he wanted the game, the team wanted the game, the fan base wanted the game. And so their best punch was going to be to get, their top five guys, in as much as possible. I do think that, as we kind of get into SEC play, that is going to balance out far more. I think there'll probably be nights where you see Tamar and Mark kind of hit that same sort of 33, 34 minute, mark. Yeah, that's right. Tony only hit 30 because he was having some cramping, I think, in his calf.
Yeah, him and Ant both had cramping. That capped their minutes a little bit.
So
hammies.
So I mean, essentially, like, how we've sort of seen, the expansive roster up to this point. I realize, you can be very tinkery when you're playing, Eastern Washington and you're playing, even Howard Pacific. You're allowing yourself to kind of, maybe give up some possessions here in order to kind of see more of what you have, versus somebody like Kansas. Missouri is going to have opportunities in the SEC to play teams that are like Kansas, but even though the league is great, there aren't that many teams like Kansas. There's like five that are in the top
5,
15?
top 10, 5 in the top 10 right now.
It's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah. So many quad 1 and 2 games. So many of them.
Yeah, currently everybody's in the top 70. South Carolina's the lowest at 68.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And they gotta go to Auburn and Tennessee, national title contenders. So
gotta go to Auburn to open up league play, which is even better. Like those, yeah. And so here, like, one of the things that we're going to kind of talk about a little bit is like what's left to play here in the rest of the non-conference slate. But if Missouri plays like they did against Kansas, they should beat Illinois.
Yes.
Like I don't like. I've watched Illinois play several times. I'm not super impressed by them. They look okay. Like they're going to be okay. Like they're not bad. But I feel like that's a game Missouri can win. If Missouri is able to beat Illinois and not slip up in the rest of their non-conference games, they're very likely going to be a ranked team going into Auburn. And
yeah,
that's a good way to get unranked real quick.
The state could be brief, but you know what? Still counts. Still counts.
And look, I do think that this team, maybe more than others, are probably kind of built to be able to play up against Auburn because because of their length, because of their athleticism. They can kind of go toe to toe with the way Auburn wants to play. But that's asking a lot. They're currently number 1 in KenPom, and that building is ridiculous. So I say that not taking any away from Missouri. I'm still on the Mizzou bandwagon here. I still think that this is a good team. They've got a shot to be, like kind of the surprise team in the SEC. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me much if they lost fairly handily at the down in the plains. So overall, beating Kansas feels great.
It happens, once or twice every decade. So really drink this in. Really hopefully it becomes a more consistent experience that we all can enjoy.
But provided that like they have to renew here. Like that is one thing that it was a 6-game series to start. I can't imagine they get rid of it. But you never know. Like you never know with these things.
No. The next 2 years are going to be neutral floors in Kansas City, which will be interesting. I do like the fact that it's on campuses, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what a split building looks like. Growing up, I remember Big 12 tournaments where that happened, and there was some serious juice when it's a split building. I think it's going to be great at the Sprint Center to have that, and God only knows what the citations are going to look like in the P&L district across the street before that game too. That the police blotter is going to be fun for that day. The entries are going to be great. The rest of non-con, the Illinois game. I've watched Illinois several times. They have some very skilled guys, some young guys. But I think that the thing you ask about Illinois is, are those guys ready to take a punch? Having watched Illinois against, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was against Alabama was, when they, played pretty well in spurts, was when they didn't have their European guys on the floor. When those guys were on the floor, Alabama was able to take it to them physically. And I don't think, that impression has completely left my mind. Arkansas has struggled at times in pick and roll coverage. They kept playing drop coverage for some reason, which is what Casper Yankonis wants. Like, just Cal didn't realize that.
Say that again.
Casper Yankonis, I think, is how you say his name. I'm probably wrong, but it's the closest I'm going to get. Just playing drop coverage, having him eviscerate it, having a Visage pop, Will Riley, just a skilled wing. Like, it was a terrible game plan. But then Northwestern, a team that plays a physical, no middle brand of defense, got an overtime win against them. Two teams that have been physical and bodied up Illinois have gotten results, in road and neutral environments. If there was one thing that stood out to me about Missouri, it was the physicality that they played with on both ends. And I think I said to you and Watkins, I don't think it's a struggle for me to recall a Kansas backcourt that seemed to shrink a little bit in the face of that. Bill doesn't always, Bill's rosters lately have had, probably more 4-year guys than one and dones. But Christian Braun wasn't going to back down. Ochai Agbaji wasn't going to back down. Kevin McCullough certainly wasn't going to back down. Like, those guys were built, they were physical, they wanted to get into you. And there were stretches on yesterday where I was just like, I can't believe this is a Bill Self team, like letting Missouri get shoulder to shoulder, body them up, get to the rim. If Missouri plays with that kind of edge and that kind of, intensity to get downhill, I think they could really, really pose problems for the guys on Illinois' roster who I think are, coming into college basketball. There's a different kind of physicality allowed. European basketball can be physical, kind of off-ball stuff, but on the ball, it's still a little bit more hand checky. They'll call some more stuff over there. I think they're really sort of adapting to, in some games here, the officials are going to let guys get their bodies into you. If Missouri's vets can do that, I think they can really get some traction there. They get a result against Illinois. You go 2-1 against this schedule, assuming that Memphis holds up as a quality loss. But the non-con, they'll have done enough against two quality teams that the team sheet will look good. Maybe it affects them at the margin on seeding if it ever got that far. This is way down the line. But if you go 12-1 with wins over Illinois and Kansas, it really would take some of the strain off what they'd have to do in SEC play. which is great because the league looks like it's gonna be an absolute meat grinder. Like getting to 10 wins for a lot of teams is gonna be an absolute brawl to get there. It's gonna be tough sledding. So getting one more quad one in non-con here would really be preferable.
Let's solid things up a little bit. Well, so I do want to touch on the SEC a little bit. We've had an uneven recording schedule in November. The timing of things certainly has sort of met with more breaks than I think we're used to kind of taking once the season kind of gets going. So we haven't really talked much about the SEC, and the SEC is so. I think, in previewing the league, we all kind of, you, me, and Watkins, spend a lot of time talking about these teams and a lot of times sort of talking about who we like, who we don't like. I really this is the year that I had the most trouble sort of, seeding, at least after maybe who I thought were going to be the top 4 or 5. Because there were teams that I liked that I ended up putting 11th or 12th, who I thought had a roster that could very easily, surprise. And there was a lot of those teams. We have talked about Vanderbilt as kind of being, a team that we thought could kind of be a bit of a surprise. So going into this season, I think we both thought the SEC would be really good. They have surpassed my expectations on how good I thought this league could be. Currently in Ken Palm, we have 1, 2, 7, 8, 10, and then a little bit of a drop to 24, but then 24, 26, 27. Georgia is 35th. Texas is 38th. Oklahoma 43. Arkansas 45. Missouri 49. LSU 51. Vandy 60. South Carolina 68. So really, Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, none of that is surprising. Florida's been way better than I thought they would be. And I still thought, I thought Florida was going to be good. I think I ended up having them 4th or maybe 5th in my rig.
Yeah,
so
we had a 4th.
Clearly thought they were going to be good. I did not think they were going to be top 10 good. They have been top 10 good. Kentucky has been way better than I thought they were going to be. It's really tough to put together a roster of that many transfers. And Mark Pope has really pulled it off. They've been incredible. Texas A&M's had some bumpiness. Mississippi State's been about what we thought. Ole Miss has kind of flashed and also looked terrible. Georgia's looked really good. Oklahoma won the battle for Atlantis.
Oklahoma's been way better than I thought.
Yeah,
way better than I
did
thought.
not think I did not think they were going to be very good at all. And even even LSU is 8-1. And that's really a roster that all of us were is this going to work? Didn't really see how it was going to work. And no, they don't really have a ton of great wins, but they've beaten 3 top 100 opponents. And their only loss is to Pitt, who, Pitt has
got smacked around by Mississippi State.
They did. But they were playing really well at the time that they played LSU. They have since kind of slipped a little bit. But that was a team that was looking like they were going to be, a lock for the NCAA tournament. So then, the ACC SEC challenge comes up, and the SEC, the only losses that the league had were Kentucky at Clemson and Auburn at Duke. Cameron Indoor, arguably the toughest venue to play basketball in, in the country.
And a lot of those by double digits too. A lot of them by double digits.
A lot of games were not close. It's surprising how much the ACC has slipped. It's also surprising how utterly powerful the SEC looks and what that's going to end up doing when they get into league play. There's going to be a lot of beating up on each other.
Watkins and I were saying with some teams that are probably going to have better non-con SOSs than Missouri. Like if you got a top 100 non-con SOS, you could probably go 7-11. Like assuming like you went 10-3, but you played a really challenging non-con, you go 7-11, 8-10, but 4 or 5 of those wins are quad 1. The committee is going to really be in a position where they're going to be like, all right, did you make the most of all of these 14 quad 1 games you have? I think when I checked today, Missouri's got 14 quad 1 games as of today in SEC play. Like, you could go 7 and it's all quad 1 and 2. It's almost unheard of for that to happen. So there's going to be some teams that I think, again, who have better non-con SOS that are going to be looking at this going, okay, the strength of the league is going to be what we rely on to carry us. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of teams, I think, stuck between that 7-11, 9-9 mark. And good luck to NCAA selection committee trying to sort out which ones need to go where and who deserves what in terms of seeding. But it's a good problem to have because it's going to juice Missouri's overall SOS, which is going to, paper over the squishy parts of non-con, which was most of non-con. So that's the boon there. The only teams I look at with real questions coming out of, non-con at this point, Texas is beaten up on a lot of, sub 250 teams, and they have not looked good again in games against top 100 opponents. They've lost their 2 marquee games to Ohio State. They lost to UConn yesterday. They've dropped, I think, 20 spots in KenPom since the year started. That's not good. Arkansas as well, a team that, I think a lot of people were saying this is Cal's bounce back year. They've also dropped 20 spots in non-con. Their 2 marquee games against Baylor and I believe against Arkansas were losses. They beat Miami last week.
Illinois.
Illinois. Yeah. Against Illinois, Baylor and Illinois, they beat Miami last week. In the preseason, that looked like a pretty good game, but I think Miami's now 99 in KenPom, 173 in the net. They've fallen apart. Like Arkansas gets Michigan tomorrow night, and that could be really, really important for them to get anything resembling a quality win out of non-con. South Carolina has a bad loss. I'm not sure that Carolina has, necessarily recovered. They blew out, Boston College last week in the ACC SEC event, but Boston College is 154th in KenPom. So if you're looking at 3 teams that I've got some questions about, those are 3 of them, but everyone else here has done a bang up job for the most part in non-con. 13 teams have done a really, really good job so far at improving their resume and collectively really separating the SEC. I think, what are they, like 3 points per 100 possessions better in adjusted efficiency than the next best team, than the Big 10 or the Big 12. It's a wide gap.
And just about the Big 12 is suffering from expansion syndrome here. With some of their TCU's kind of fallen off a little bit. Oklahoma State's rebuilding.
UCF's flattened out.
Yeah, but having a little bit more dead weight in the bottom half of the the conference, which is something that the SEC has always kind of had. The Big 12 didn't have until they expanded. So, now you're looking at really like, I really didn't like South Carolina's roster outside of Colin Murray Boyles. And I don't even think he's played all that well in some of their games, and they're still kind of holding on to where they were in the preseason for KenPom, which is top 70. So really like the bottom half of the league is going to catch the top half of the league way more than we're accustomed to.
Yeah.
The benefit So the benefit, I think, analytically, and I think this is something that the Big 12 always kind of benefited from is, when you get into league play, there's a lot of close games. Even when it's the first place team against the last place team, like a lot of times those games are closer than you think they will be. And so what happens is that helps the league kind of shrink everything down. And so once we get through like the next few weeks to start getting into league play, you're going to start seeing like, okay, so Missouri's right now, let's say they hold steady at 49 going to league play. Let's see what an Auburn projected 16-point loss, right? Okay. So if they go to Auburn and they lose by 10, like you're still not feeling great, but like that's a analytics bump. And it's going to help you. It doesn't hurt Auburn all that much. And that's basically how the league is going to shift itself and kind of help even, possibly shrink down, provided that, those sort of close results do happen. But yeah, like it does mean that even your home games, you're going to have a lot of quad 1 opportunities. At worst, they're going to be quad 2. You're not going to get, bitten by, a quad 4 team sneaking in and giving you a hard time and dragging down your rating, because everybody's going to come in and going to be, even if you're playing a tight game, it's not really going to harm your net number. So in this case, they're talking about KenPom, but it's not really going to harm your net number if you like beat South Carolina only by like 4 or 5 points versus, maybe 2 years ago where South Carolina was, 250th in KenPom, 220 something, if I remember correctly, but
221.
Hey, yeah, 221. How's that for remembering? So like that's one of the things that I'm kind of like really interested to see play out. I mean, Auburn's projected to go 14-4. South Carolina's projected to go 5-13. I think honestly, I think that's kind of the record that I picked as far as like the top and the bottom. And mostly I felt when I was doing that I was hedging my own bets going into the season, because there were so many good teams, and I didn't want to be like, oh, they're gonna stink. They're gonna go 1-17. I just don't think we have anybody like that this year.
Yeah, it's exceptionally rare for most of the teams at the bottom win 3 or 4 games in a normal year. That's the thing that always kills me about the preseason picks. I've got them at 2-16. That almost nobody goes 2-16. It's exceptionally rare for someone to go 2-16. It's exceptionally rare for someone to go 3-15. 4-14, 5-13 is kind of where the bottom is for the league. The question is going to be, do they, how far, how many wins can the bottom poach from the top? Is Auburn really going to get to 14-4? Or is this going to be a year where the league's depth makes it a 12-6 champ, and we're going to be relying on tiebreakers? We don't really know yet. It seems like KenPom right now, at least based on the ratings here, I mean, Auburn and Tennessee have a wide gap. The gap between Tennessee and Alabama is, almost 5.5 points per 100 possessions. And that's 2-7. That's a very, very wide gap. So if you were to look at, the poll that came out today, the AP poll, the poll that comes out the 6th week of the season has generally had the national champion inside the top 12. It's been that way since 2005. If you overlap that with KenPom, teams that are in the top 5 since 2013 at this point in the season, your national champ usually comes from that group. That's a long way of saying Auburn and Tennessee right now are probably the 2 teams that you look at right now and go, okay, if they really get in a groove, they could separate. They could be the ones that break out ahead, and it's a duel between them, and that's going to come down to Tennessee going to the Plains for a title. Otherwise, it could be a car crash behind them. If they separate, man, 3 through 16 could just get really, really wild. So I think that's the thing I keep looking at here is the gaps are so wide, between those top 2 and everyone else, that like Alabama right now is 7th, and the gap is 5 to 24. Like, so Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, and A&M may beat the crap out of each other, and who knows what that's going to do for seeding. It's just going to get pretty interesting as we get into January there. Missouri, the objective for them remains the same: 20 wins overall, find a way to 9 or 10 in SEC play, get 5 quad ones, get out of non-con without doing something stupid. You'll make the tournament. You may only be an 8 or a 9 seed, but 20, 10, and 5 is still the best ratio at this point for them. We'll see how easy it is to get to 10, but they should have a shot to get to that 5, which I think is going to be really, really important. If they can get 5 quad 1 wins and avoid some bad losses, they're going to really help themselves.
Yeah, I think they can. Yeah, they can survive a loss to Illinois. We don't want to lose to Illinois. Go beat Illinois. Leave no doubt. Beat them worse than you just beat Kansas, please. But the world, like your NCAA tournament hopes don't end there. There's far too many opportunities in SEC play. For this team. It is going to be hard. It is going to be really hard. Yeah, I mean, and it is going to be interesting to kind of see how things play out. I'm excited because I do like good basketball. I'm happy that the league is better. I'm happy that the league is the best league. Like, for so many years, like we've kind of jokingly referred to SEC basketball fever. So it's really, really nice to, as like basketball is my primary sport. It's one that I want to watch the most. It's really, really nice to have a league that's actually, you're excited to tune into, any game. And even if it's like not Missouri's night to play and you can tune in and watch 2 really good basketball teams play. Like, it's going to be Florida and Alabama. Like that's going to be an intriguing matchup.
Yeah. What's nutty is that if you look at Missouri's 13th in terms of like Kim Pom rating among SEC teams, so close to the bottom 4, in almost any other year, being around 49th would probably put you between like 6th and 9th. That's how deep the league is. Not just adding 2 teams, but the depth here has pushed you down to 6 spots. Like, you could be in any other year over the last decade. You look at this team, you're like, all right, they're 49th. That's going to be a solid mid-table. That's going to be 9 and 9. That's going to, they'll get some good wins. They're going to get out of non-con. If they get out at 11 and 2, go 9 and 9, get 5 wins. Yeah, they're solid. It's going to be a decent seed in the SEC tournament. There are going to be teams that are going to probably be top 45 that are going to be like, crap, we're 7 and 11 and we're fighting it out for the 12 seed. So, like, I think this is all a way of us saying, I think people need to readjust their expectations if this keeps up going into SEC play. Like, people are going to look at the record and be like, this team's awful. It's going to be like, they're not awful. They're just, everyone in this league is good. League. And people have to lose basketball games.
I just pulled up the 2013. It was Missouri's first year in the SEC.
Oh, man, we were deep in the throes of SEC basketball fever that year, my man. I covered that live. There was a three-way tie for second after Florida finished 14-4. Florida was second in the country, 14-4. A three-way tie for second place, everybody at 12-6, with Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Alabama. Those teams had net ratings of 34th, 55th, and 64th. Missouri was 25th that year, and
went 11-7.
Yeah, 11-7. I think the non-con that year was particularly brutal. I think Frank was feeling some heat and decided, let's soften things up. But no, that I remember that year because what was that? There were 3 teams. Yeah. Oh, only 2. South Carolina and Mississippi State that were sub 200. Auburn just escaped at 197.
And Auburn,
and we had,
and like Auburn's the one who finished in last place.
Yeah. There were 5 sub 100 teams.
LSU and Georgia finished below 100, and both were 9-9. Like this is not that league.
No, that's what prompted Mr. Slive to basically call every AD and go, once the ATM fires up with the SEC network, this shit won't fly anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we're bringing in Mike Tranghese, we're bringing in schedule that. The next year, they launched the SEC network, which that cranked up the money machine. And they brought in experts who basically said, here's the scheduling guideline that all your opponents have to have an average of top 150. Like, credit to the league. A lot of leagues will say, oh, we're going to emphasize this. The SEC, they spent money, they hired coaches, they built facilities, and they actually scheduled like they gave a shit. And it, a decade later, now if you add in what they have with NIL and the other TV deal, this is what happens when you have sustained, continued investment in the product. You build this. So, we joke about SEC basketball fever, and I think a lot of us who were covering the league at the time were very skeptical that a football-centric league would really lean into it. We were wrong. Credit to the SEC. They've absolutely, the teams in this conference have really, really leveled up. And it's awesome to see because now you get to tune in every night, and almost every game you watch now has some quality to it. So it's been fun. I actually enjoy watching South Carolina now and Mississippi State to a certain degree. I don't dread seeing that game on television.
So we're going to wrap this up.
I'm sorry, LIU, we didn't get to you.
Yeah. So coming up, Missouri basketball, they have a week off. Is it finals week? I'm assuming it's finals week.
It is finals week.
You think I know that with all our student writers, but yeah. So Missouri doesn't play until Saturday. They play Long Island University. Would have been Long Island, Brooklyn, but they have since consolidated into one campus, and it is just Long Island now. LIU is 338th in Ken Pomeroy. There is a projected 25-point win. Then on Tuesday, Jacksonville State comes in. Jacksonville State's got a little bit of a team there. They're solid in the Conference USA. Ray Harper
Ray
has
Harper's
a bit of a
there.
Reputation as a really good basketball coach. Believe if you go back, he was one of the national champion winners back in the days when Bruce Pearl was also coaching in Division II. He was a big time D2 coach, and they had some great battles. They have a senior, Jerome Pierre, who would be a somewhat familiar name, playing at Wichita State a couple years ago. And they're decent. 175 in KenPom. That is a projected 14-point win. And then Illinois. So we'll probably come back at some point next week, maybe before Illinois, but after Jacksonville, to sort of talk about those games. And then I do want to kind of plug our little website here, Rockin' Plus, because be on the lookout. Matt Watkins is doing a subscriber-only version of like a little video film series called The Verdict. We're going to publish that, available for all to see either tomorrow or Wednesday. It might be tomorrow. I think it just kind of depends on some of the editing stuff. But you can go bookmark Rockin' Plus. We have a bunch of stuff. Matt, this other Matt, is doing lineup stuff, which I don't know when you're publishing the next one, but I'm assuming it's coming soon. We are publishing articles there. It is worth bookmarking, even if you're a subscriber. It is more than just forums, but please join us in the forums. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because we are having some good combos. I actually like something about the KU game, and all of a sudden everybody got chatty, and it's like I feel like we don't have a super chatty bunch, and now everybody's talking, and I'm digging it. So people are are excited for that. Transfer portal is open in football, so there's threads on that stuff. I guess Nate and Nathan are recording podcasts around that as well. And so so we'll be back. I don't know exactly what date, but we'll be back soon, and we'll talk more Mizzou basketball as the only Mizzou basketball podcast on the internet. So until that time, thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you. We will see you soon. Thank you everyone for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.